for the Tax and Controlled Cannabis Initiative of 2010. And Dale, we're streaming our video right now to a live audience all over the world, watching on the internet, watching on the World Wide Web, and also watching on Facebook. So thank you for joining us here tonight. And Dale, I will get right to the point. Can you tell us about this initiative that everyone in here in California is talking about, the Control and Tax Cannabis Initiative of 2010? Can you give us an overview of the initiative and what it will do for California?
Certainly, Alex. Thank you for having me, and especially all of you for being here. Thank you for taking your valuable time and consideration of this initiative tonight. It's important to understand what the Control, Tax, and Regulate measure of 2010 will do and also what it won't do. Specifically, this will allow any adult 21 or over to possess up to 1 ounce of cannabis for personal possession. In addition, it will allow you, if you are an adult 21 or over, to grow your own in small amounts in your private home. Now, this is up to a 25 square foot or 5 by 5 area. And you do have an affirmative defense to possess anything that you happen to grow for personal consumption in your home. Now, most importantly, what this initiative does is it sets up the structure by which the state, or more importantly, local cities and counties, to establish regulation, controls, and perhaps even taxation on a local level. So locals can determine the best way to opt in to regulation. It may simply be to finally regulate medical sales, which is something that many cities and counties have been struggling with. That will finally be legal and clarified under state law as legal. But in addition to that, we also have the opportunity for hemp farmers to finally regulate and then cultivate hemp for food, fiber, and clothing. And potentially, some forward-thinking cities may choose to regulate cannabis for adult recreational sales so that adults might make that safer choice.
But just to be clear, when the initiative passes, you won't be able to go buy cannabis in a 7-Eleven.
Correct. This does not set up just the helter-skelter free-for-all sales of cannabis. In fact, the free-for-all is right now with the sales of cannabis, and this is an opportunity to bring this into regulation. This will not allow you to go sell cannabis to anyone on the street. You have to go get a permit for that, and it has to be regulated by your local city or town. But that actually applies to a lot of the dispensaries that are permitted locally and yet are still struggling with law enforcement interpreting their legality.
You mentioned industrial hemp, and we're taking questions from the internet, from Facebook right now. We have a question from George in West Hollywood, and George wants to know, will the initiative allow California to have industrial hemp production?
Yes, and this is what's so exciting, is not only can we regulate the psychoactive cannabis, but also the non-psychoactive cannabis. We're talking about hemp here. In fact, our Central Valley farmers up in Fresno, all of the folks that are really struggling right now in agriculture in California will have the opportunity to lobby their local governments to finally allow for not just the agriculture and production of hemp, but also the manufacture. We have to realize that because of current federal law, that any hemp that we produce here in California has to stay to be manufactured here in California. So we have an opportunity for an awful lot of jobs in this industry.
We have another question also from the internet. This one from Hayward here in the East Bay. Angela from Hayward is a mother, and she is concerned that what the effect of the initiative will be on children, especially obviously her own children. And she wants to know, will the initiative make her children's lives safer?
Well, she shares the concern that many of us share. In fact, when we look at the campaign all the way around, we're currently operating under a structure of prohibition rather than regulation, which makes cannabis more accessible to her children. In fact, recent studies show that cannabis is the most accessible drug for our children. It's much more difficult for them to get tobacco or alcohol because it's regulated, because the person that would sell it to them will lose their license for doing so. And it's time that we finally bring this into a controlled market, because right now the only place that is IDing your kids when they offer them pot or meth, oh wait, nobody IDs your kids because it's not a regulated market. And this is what we're purporting to do, is bring this into control. Now, when we talk about being safer, we can actually take this a step further. Cannabis itself has shown to be safer. There is no known lethal dose for cannabis. And so any parent that chooses to use cannabis as a medicine instead of, say, a pharmaceutical or aspirin has to realize that if their kid comes across their brownie, the worst that's going to happen is a long nap. Where if that same child came across even just a few aspirin pills, it could kill them. Now take it one step further with cannabis is safer. Ask any law enforcement officer with more than one stripe or one bar if they would rather walk into an alcohol situation, methamphetamine, or any cannabis situation. When you look at domestic abuse and fights, violence, and crimes against others, they're very rarely involved in a cannabis situation. It's nearly always driven by alcohol or harder drugs. So when we ask if your kids are going to be safer, we're offering an environment in which adults can make the safer choice and actually decide to go buy a bud rather than a bud from a bar, and just make that safer choice. Be more present with their kids instead of absent.
So do you think it's safe to tell Angela and Hayward that her children will be better off when the initiative passes?
In the long run, Angela, all of our children are going to be better off. And in fact, if you look at the studies across the world, in both the Netherlands and in Portugal, it's shown that once brought into a regulated market, the consumption by children goes down. And we're also it's time to have an honest conversation with our children, that the true dangers of cannabis is not so much that you're going to go crazy and get addicted and go straight to methamphetamines. The true danger of cannabis, especially for our young people, is that they might like it a little too much and too often. And that's the conversation that we need to have with our kids, that there is a time and a place for certain things. And in the case of cannabis, it's not until college. You have some time. But it's important that we have these honest conversations with our children about the true harms and bring this into perspective.
Actually, my time was in Hollywood. I didn't have in college cannabis.
Hollywood will do that to you.
We have a question from someone who's watching on Facebook right now, and just to let you know, we have over, I believe, about 70,000 Facebook friends right now. So if you're not
impressive.
our Facebook friend, please,
You should be.
please join and send us to your friends as well. But Avanza on Facebook just asked, and I guess we don't know what city Avanza is coming from because they're coming from Facebook, but they want to know, what is the biggest hurdle that the campaign has to overcome right now?
No, this is going to have to be a campaign of education. The good news is we really do have the science on our side. And when we step away from the politics and look at the reality, the science, we realize that the biggest hurdle we have to overcome is misinformation and disinformation. And this is going to come from a few different sources. We do have a very strong coalition of law enforcement who believe that current policy has failed. However, there are an awful lot of lobbyists whose jobs really depend on cannabis staying illegal. And so you're going to hear a lot of the same scare tactics that we've been hearing for, decades now. And it's important, it's very important that we get the truth out. We get the information about what this campaign does and what it doesn't do. It's only about 2.5 pages, so it's a pretty easy read. And it's important that you share this with the people that you know, not just in California, but throughout the country. Ask them to call their cousin in California. Most importantly, you have some buttons on your screen right now. And if you can click to share this information, click that you're going to vote, that you can make that difference. And most importantly, it's going to be about the contributions. We're going to have a battle on our hands, and it's probably going to be taken to television commercials. And we have to realize that with the current gubernatorial and AG race, that those advertising dollars are going to get very expensive. Now, California has an opportunity to change history. And it's really just us finding 1 million people in California to donate $10. And we now have $10 million to go fight the smear campaigns. So it's about getting involved. It's about sharing the knowledge. It's about contributing, not just with dollars, although that's very helpful and much appreciated, but with your time. You have a chance to volunteer. You can go to taxcannabis.org, and you can also go call the campaign or visit one of our headquarters, either in Oakland or down in Los Angeles. and get directly involved. We have an amazing group of volunteers that can tailor for you in your neck of the woods the best way for you to be involved. So the volunteerism, the sharing with your friends, and then of course contributing so that the folks that are really driving this issue forward can continue to make it happen. So make sure you share this information with your friends. Never doubt that a small group of concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And we can make this happen.
Dale, is there anything that you'd like to add tonight for our audience out on the internet that's watching? Any last words about the initiative?
Well, I just want to remind everyone that, we have a real opportunity here to have safer communities, to control cannabis away from our children. If we simply choose to control, tax, and regulate cannabis, we have an opportunity for tens of thousands of jobs. And we can really start to turn around what's going on in California with this failed policy if we just choose to make this change. So I hope we'll see all of you and all of your email addresses at taxcannabis.org. Also, if we get enough feedback from this particular podcast, we will definitely, without question, have more. So please do contact us if you liked it. I think we got over 400 questions just for this alone. So I definitely thank you for your time and consideration in being involved with this. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you for watching. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Appreciate it, Alex.
Good night.
Thank you.